Sam Armstrong from the Free Speech Union, who joins me now. Afternoon to you, Sam.
Good afternoon, Cristo.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us this afternoon. And, you know, the news agenda, it rumbles on every single year, obviously. What have been the big stories that have jumped out at you from 2024?
Well, it's hard to imagine that it was only a year ago, but of course this year began with that extraordinary ITV docu-drama series, Mr. Bates, and we learnt of just the most appalling tragedy that took place at one of our country's allegedly beloved institutions, the post office, where a bunch of bureaucrats and officials decided to falsely accuse tens of and hundreds of post office postmasters of committing fraud when the evidence just didn't back it up in the slightest. And for years and years, it was covered up. It feels like that story's been with us for a very, very long time indeed.
But the compensation hasn't been with us at all. Though I think some of them are in the New Year's honours list, which will be, I'm sure, a great consolation to them after having had no compensation and still with criminal records. But what a great example, though, of how art can sometimes really move people to fight for change. Of course, from what I understand, though, I think staggeringly it made no money, that drama. It didn't actually make any money because, of course, there's barely any money in terrestrial television anymore, but it really did create a movement for change, didn't it?
Yeah, and that's the remarkable thing. None of the facts in that drama were new. Everything took place in it was known to politicians, was known to us in the media, and was known to the public for many, many years. But it actually took that, seeing it played out by some brilliant actors, actually, to drive that home. And shamefully, it took that drama to, for example, convince our politicians to pass a law that immediately quashed all of those criminal convictions and begin to deal with the compensation issue. And I don't know what it says really about our politics, that they can ignore an issue for years and years. Perhaps it's not fashionable. There's going to be no Guardian and Politician of the Year award for you for dealing with it, for dealing with it before that point. I don't know what it says about our politics that it took that moment to convince them to do the right thing that should have been glaringly obvious for years.
OK, let's talk about some of the other big stories of the year. What else has jumped out at you? So that was, of course, back in January, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. What other month would you like to pick?
Well, of course, that news was followed in February and March with the start of what has been a torrid year for the royal family. We saw firstly in February, King Charles was diagnosed with cancer, and then shortly thereafter in March, the Princess of Wales, Kate, followed thereafter. And I think they've both displayed some extraordinary fortitude, the best of British, just making do and muddling through as best as they can in very difficult circumstances. And of course, the spirit they've shown has contrasted so much against their respective brothers in the form of Harry and Meghan, who have continued their global whinging tour from California, and of course, Prince Andrew, who's continued to whinge and whine as best as he can that how awful it is that he's stuck there in his 100-room mansion in Windsor at the King's expense.
I mean, at least Andrew has not given interviews directly against his family. He's just disgraced them in slightly other ways, whereas, of course...
But it's how many ways now, Cristo? I mean, the best friend being a paedophile is, that's come and gone. We've now gone to the Chinese spy, and that was almost...
I feel a bit sorry for him over the Chinese spy, though. I do. And, OK, you're right, the paedophile thing, you cannot keep... There's no way of getting around that and going and staying with someone who's convicted as a paedophile. But what we do fail to mention, and let's not make any bones about it, Andrew is clearly not the sharpest tool in the box. Why would he have to be if he's had, toothpaste put in his brush for him? You don't have to think really very critically about things, do you? Hence, going and staying with a paedophile. However, if someone who is alleged, of course it's denied, but alleged to be a spy is photographed with Theresa May, photographed with David Cameron, and ends up in these corridors of power, well then how on earth was Prince Andrew supposed to know?
Cristo, if a Chinese businessman pitches up on your doorstep, offers you millions of pounds, despite being thick as two planks, as I think it's fair to say that dear Prince Andrew might be, in order for you to grease the wheels with various challenges and business connections that he has, and wants you to fly out to China and
Pitch at Palace. Don't forget Pitch at Palace.
Pitch at Palace, China. Then the alarm bells ought to be ringing.
But isn't that the job of his advisors? Shouldn't have his advisors said, you know what?
The worst bit about it is one of his advisors was boasting that this Chinese businessman had managed to smuggle people in and out without the rest of the palace authorities knowing. They knew what they were doing was dodgy, but they were after the money, and they were quite happy to rub it home.
Didn't King Charles accept, was it Fortnum and Mason carrier bags full of dollars or euros or cash from Saudi businessmen as well? I mean, they're all a bit stupid, aren't they? They're all are. I love them. Don't get me wrong. I'm a monarchist, but I don't know whether I would call them the sharpest tools in the box. I think William's quite intelligent, but not many of them are.
Well, it's a certain type of schooling and, dare I say, certain type of breeding that's gone into creating our beloved royal family.
I'm not sure that's a compliment, but I think we should take it as one.